King, you were telling us the other night at Lowry's about your grandfather. He's passed now.
Yeah.
Tell me about that and what that dynamic was like between you and him, and how you guys shared the experience of the Rose Bowl.
Yeah, it was always a big thing going over to my grandparents' house on any football day, especially a big day like the Rose Bowl game. We'd always go over there and watch him, and he'd always have the hottest takes, man. He'd always have his opinion on everybody. And he's now passed 2 years now, and he's been a really big kind of inspiration in my life. He's a father figure to me. He kind of taught me, what it takes to be a football player, because he played back in the day, and he was a cowboy, so he was tough, man. And he showed me really what toughness really is. Even to the day he died, man, he was tough as nails. And I really look at him every single day, kind of for that motivation, because I know if I told him, if I complained to him, it'd always be a smart out comment back. So yeah, it was a really big thing, man. And that's just another opportunity to be with my family on those Rose Bowl days. I know he really enjoyed it, and he would love it being here, man. So
I was just going to ask you about that. What would he think if you being here?
He'd be extremely proud, man. My redshirt year, I redshirted, so he didn't really understand that at the time. So every single time I come home, he's like, "Why aren't you playing? Why aren't you playing?" And I did start playing. He's like, "How'd you play?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I played all right." He's like, "Why not?" It was just always, he expected so much of me, man. And when we didn't go to the Rose Bowl, when we didn't beat Washington State, my earlier years, he would always get on me, man. And he was very critical of that. So now, looking back, if he was here today, man, he'd be on top of the world.
Was he helpful in your upbringing, as far as you mentioned him being a father?
Yeah.
About your production, or just how you became?
For sure. My parents got divorced at an early age, so my mom was a single mom for a long time, man. And eventually I met my stepdad. So it actually is my step-grandpa, who the man is. Zygmunt. His name's Zygmunt Molesky. And they both did a really good job of just giving me a father figure growing up, and I couldn't thank them both enough. So I know my dad would be really happy to have him here. And yeah.
What's it like for you to end your career and represent the city of Yakima?
It's awesome, man. Yakima's not really known for a football town. It's mostly agricultural, baseball kind of place. And every single time I come home, man, everyone's extremely proud of me, and it means a lot to me, because when I walk out on the field, I'm not only representing my name, my university, but I'm also representing Yakima, Washington. So me, Cooper Kupp, guys like those guys that came out of Yakima, we're really proud to be from Yakima, man, and it means a lot. It's a blue-collar town, and I hope to kind of represent that and put that on my back every single time I walk out. So yeah.
Last question I have is, as you leave this program, what kind of shape will you leave it as far as the offensive line next year? Maybe talk about that and how you kind of mentored some of those guys and what they look forward to in the future.
I look at Alex Forsythe, the guy that no one really knows about, as a brother. He's a brother, and I think he's going to be a phenomenal offensive lineman here. I think next spring you guys are going to see him coming up in all these articles and stuff, and you're like, wow, this guy's going to be a good one. And we've been saying that ever since I got here, but he's a backup on a line that's very, very good. Our offensive line is very good. And any Pac-12 school, I think he'd be a starting guy, and he'd be a name brand football player there. So kind of just leave my legacy there. I mean, I noticed him. He follows me around, man. He noticed exactly what I was doing at any given moment, man. When I'm eating, I'll look over at his plate, and he's kind of eating the same thing. It's that kind of stuff. And I did the same thing with guys like Matt Haggerty, Tyler Johnstone, just taking everything I can from them. And I noticed as these last couple of practices end, the younger guys are really looking at us more, and they're noticing that we're going to leave and trying to get any ounce of information we can from them, because we're only here for one more practice, So yeah.
I mean, you guys, between Jake and Calvin, you guys have been practicing, just doing these Sunday drills for 4 straight years. Does it kind of hit you that you got 1 week left of just getting this score?
Yeah. I mean, it's the thing that that warmed up process we always think about. We never want to think about anything else. I mentioned things to Coach Crystal, I got 2 more weeks here, I got 1 more week here, and he's we got a big one coming up, man. Don't even think about that. But yesterday, I got to admit, yesterday was the first day where I was like, okay, this is my last Tuesday practice of my career. This is special, man. And getting done with that practice, walking off the field, I was like, oh man, 1 more padded practice. So yeah, it's definitely hitting me now.
Did you have a bond with those guys as a true freshman, or was it kind of going through the pains you went through as a redshirt freshman, where it really came together?
With John Stone and those guys?
With Hanson and Morton and Aiello and all those guys?
our true freshman year, we were living together, so we got to know each other really well. But it wasn't really a bonded relationship until we were going through the struggle our redshirt freshman year, and just losing the games and having to talk to each other. After the game, how can we be better? And we're 19 years old at that time, so we're trying to figure out at the same time how were you supposed to get better. And at the same time, we're doing a good job of helping each other up. Because if you had a bad game or something, we'd always rely on the guys next to us to kind of boost us up. So. Yeah.
Did you guys realize at the time that what doesn't kill you makes you stronger, or were you like, what's happened to Oregon football here?
It was tough because just the tradition, the history Oregon football has, and we were losing games, and we were the starters at that time. And college football teams rely heavily on our offensive line, so we thought it was our fault, and I'm sure a couple of those games were our fault. So that was really tough, but at the same time, we had it back in our mind that our time hasn't came yet, and we worked to be like the athletes we were going to be eventually. But at the same time, we were struggling with that. At the same time, losing games and having to prepare for games that it was tough defensive lines. Veteran like UW, Washington had a great defensive line that year, and we were all freshmen, young bucks, man. And they're probably licking their chops, but we held our own and just continued to get better.
What was the low point? Was it losing Graywood or a certain game? Or
at USC, because I grew up kind of like a USC fan. That was good they were really, really good when I was growing up. And going down to the Coliseum and that big of an atmosphere and just getting beaten pretty bad, and that was kind of like, okay, like Oregon wins these games, and this is the Oregon team that I grew up watching, and we thought it was part of it was us.